aggression and inspiration are the key to all and total success, you know.
You thought Rob Dyrdek was just a funny guy on MTV, mini bikes, zip lines, a pony named Buttercup. But behind every joke was a contract, behind every episode, a business plan. While other skaters signed away their names, Rob secured his future. And when MTV handed him the spotlight, he turned it into a syndication machine. He didn't walk away from skateboarding. He scaled it, repackaged it, sold it, then did it again. This isn't the story you think it is. It's not about fame or luck. It's about a skater who outplayed everyone and built an empire while they watched. Before the TV deals, before the empire, Rob Dyrdek was just a hungry kid from Kettering, Ohio, looking for a way out. But even at 11 years old, when he first picked up a board, something was different. He didn't just want to skate, he wanted to shape something bigger. By 16, he turned pro and moved to California. Alien Workshop gave him a shot.
I was 13, right after I turned 13 in the summer, and we were teammates, and then everybody that rode GNS moved back to Dayton. He moved to Dayton, and then started the Alien Workshop,
right?
And then turned pro for the Alien Workshop at 16, right? So that's how unusual,
crazy.
How much, the beginning of the layers and layers of...
But Rob wasn't there to just stack footage. He studied the business side obsessively, asking questions, watching how deals were structured, and thinking years ahead while other skaters just focused on tricks. He noticed early that pro skaters, even the best, weren't getting rich. They were getting checks, and the companies made millions. Rob hated that math. Not long after turning pro, he joined the DC Shoes team, one of their earliest riders, and immediately helped shape what a signature skate shoe deal could look like.
Now keep in mind, look, obviously I grinded the 20 stair handrail because you have no choice, like third try, right?
Right.
It took me like an hour to land the kickflip.
No way.
Yeah, I was losing my mind, and I'm like, oh my God, I just grinded a 20 stair handrail and I can't close out this commercial.
It wasn't just about putting his name on something. He worked closely with Ken Block and Damon Way to develop a full line, built around his style, identity, and marketing. It wasn't just about royalties, it was about presence. DC didn't just sponsor Rob, they backed him to help define the brand. And he delivered. But Rob wasn't stopping at footwear. Behind the scenes, he was already planting deeper roots. In the early 2000s, while most skaters were happy just to be part of a company, Rob started acquiring an ownership stake in DNA Distribution, the parent company of Alien Workshop Habitat and Reflex. When Burton Snowboards bought DNA in 2008, Rob kept watching. And when they eventually let it go, he stepped in and acquired the entire company himself in 2012.
When I bought DNA from Burton, right, it was everybody around me, it was like, you cannot do this. This business is terrible. This business loses so much money. And for me, I just was like, no, it's like the story of it.
Bringing Alien Workshop back under his own control. For him, it wasn't just a business move, it was personal. Alien Workshop had been his first sponsor. The brand that took a chance on a skinny kid from Ohio. Rob felt a responsibility to keep it alive, even if it meant losing money. And he did. He said publicly that he poured millions of his own dollars into keeping the company afloat through 2 different ownership cycles. Most people wouldn't do that. Most wouldn't even try. But Rob wasn't playing the short game. He wasn't trying to be a skate legend. He was building something that lasted. He saw early that ownership equals freedom. That when you control the brand, you control the outcome. And he learned to treat everything, sponsorships, board graphics, shoe deals, as business models, not just moments. Even before the camera showed up, Rob Dyrdek wasn't following the system. He was engineering his own. By the mid-2000s, Rob had already flipped the script on what it meant to be a sponsored skater. But for all the brand deals and business wins, one thing still bothered him. There were barely any legal places to skate that actually reflected street skating. Most parks were built by people who didn't skate. Big bowls, weird transitions, outdated vert ramps. Nothing like the stairs and ledges that defined Rob's style. So he decided to change that too. In 2005, Rob partnered with his hometown of Kettering, Ohio, to build something new, the Rob Dyrdek / DC Skate Plaza.
Like when I built that first skate plaza in Kettering, Ohio, that there was never like a regular urban skate park that wasn't transitions and a regular skate park. It was the first pure skate plaza.
No bowls, no transitions. Just a full street plaza. Rails, stairs, benches, and ledges. The kind of setup skaters were usually chased away from. But this wasn't just another skate park.
Shit, I'm back.
Alright, look, hold on. First of all, I just like to thank everybody for coming out here.
Rob pitched the concept to local officials, helped co-design every element, and made sure it was done right. Not just for Kettering, but as a proof of concept. The project blurred the line between civic development and brand storytelling. It was the first legal, pro-designed, street-style skate park in the U.S., and it worked. The plaza opened to a massive turnout and national attention. City officials from all over started reaching out, asking how they could build one too. So Rob launched the Skate Plaza Foundation, a nonprofit that helped bring skate plazas to other cities while building awareness around the value of youth spaces that reflected actual skate culture. For Rob, it wasn't just about giving back. It was about creating infrastructure that told a story, one that elevated skating instead of pushing it to the fringes. He understood that when you shape the space, you shape the experience. And when you invite cities to build with you instead of against you, things change. And the brands noticed. DC's alignment with the project put them in a different league. They weren't just making shoes. They were helping build the places skating happened. It was the kind of authenticity most companies couldn't fake. What started as a hometown passion project turned into a national movement, one that redefined what a skate park could look like and what a skater could do with vision, leverage, and a plan. The plaza wasn't just concrete, it was a strategy. It was the start of something much bigger. To the outside world, Rob and Big looked like a goofy MTV reality show. A skater and his oversized bodyguard buying mini horses, eating burritos, and pulling pranks in LA. It felt random, almost scripted.
All he did was like call a local security office in San Diego and say, hey, we're looking for like a big guy that's kind of fun and lovable, but intimidating, but lovable. Oh, we got the perfect guy. That it was as much as that.
Really?
And then we just met up and shot a scene together.
But behind the scenes, Rob was running a masterclass in controlled exposure. He didn't just star in the show, he pitched it, sold it, and shaped the format. MTV didn't come to him. He brought the idea to them. And he made sure it was built on his terms. Because Rob didn't want to be famous for fame's sake. He wanted distribution, airtime, a platform. He saw that mainstream TV could do something skate videos couldn't. Introduce a whole new audience to who he was, not just what he could do on a board. Every burrito bet and mini horse was strategy. While other pros were grinding through another street park, Rob was turning his life into a brand asset. Every room he walked into, from sponsors to city councils, now knew who he was. And not just as a skater, as a creator, a producer, a business thinker, and he didn't waste the spotlight. During Rob and Big, he quietly built out his media company Superjacket and negotiated deals to maintain creative control and back-end ownership of everything he touched. MTV gave him airtime. Rob turned that airtime into leverage. The show ran for 3 seasons and became one of MTV's biggest unscripted hits. But it ended with tension behind the scenes. Big wanted out, and Rob respected that, even if it meant walking away from a massive opportunity. Years later, they'd reconnect. But at the time, the split hit hard. Still, he wasn't done. The moment Rob and Big ended, Rob went back to the network with a new pitch, Fantasy Factory. Bigger sets, bigger stunts, more control. He didn't just want to film his life anymore, he wanted to design it. The Fantasy Factory wasn't just a warehouse. It was a studio, an office, a product lab, a skate park, and a content engine all rolled into one.
I just made the decision one Saturday morning, you've got to take the shot, and then I spent the whole weekend and wrote the entire concept. Initially it was called the Fantasy Life, and it was the idea of turning my fantasies into reality.
It was Rob's brain turned inside out, a space where business, creativity, and chaos could collide on camera. And he owned it, literally. He used the space to build brands in real time. From Street League to Wild Grinders to merch drops with ridiculous margins, Rob was testing how far you could push a brand if you had a camera and a clear message. The show just made it fun to watch. It wasn't about TV, it was validation. MTV was giving him 30 minutes a week on cable. Rob turned it into national product testing. Every skit, every stunt, every piece of merch was backed by the audience that watched him live his life. It made launching faster, buzz stronger, feedback instant. And once he proved the formula worked, he scaled it. Rob wasn't chasing fame. He was building a feedback loop, and the loop worked. By the time Fantasy Factory wrapped, Rob had already built more than just a fan base. He'd built a repeatable system, and MTV noticed. In 2011, they greenlit a new show, Ridiculousness. Part America's Funniest Home Videos, part Tosh.0, all filtered through Rob's lens. It was low-cost, fast-paced, and built for rewatchability. But what MTV didn't realize at the time was that Ridiculousness would soon become the backbone of their entire network. The format was simple: clip, joke, reaction, again and again. Viewers could jump in at any moment. No story arcs, no cast drama, no filler. It was perfect for background viewing and binge watching, and it never went stale.
Was when I read the article with Vinny DeBona, who was the producer of America's Funniest Home Videos, about how America's Funniest Home Videos was a $500 million syndication business. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna make the cool version of America's Funniest Home Videos. And that at the time we created it, it was called Money Shot, because we were gonna have it be connected to winning money. And then Shane was like, why don't you call it something that you say all the time? And I'm like, okay, well, what do I say? He's like, you should call it Ridiculousness. You always say this is ridiculousness, you know. And I'm like, all right, let's call it that then. And then MTV picked up Ridiculousness.
While most shows were fighting for one primetime slot, Ridiculousness could air any time. And eventually, it did. At its peak, Ridiculousness took up over 50% of MTV's weekly programming, with some weeks crossing 80% plus of airtime. It became a running joke online, but for Viacom, it was simple math. The show delivered steady ratings for a fraction of the cost of scripted TV. It printed money. And Rob wasn't just a host collecting a day rate. He was the executive producer. He owned a stake in the show's back end, and he produced every episode through his company, Super Jacket. That meant that every time Ridiculousness aired, whether it was 3 p.m. or 3 a.m., Rob got paid. Not just a check for showing up, but a cut of the licensing, the reruns, and the international rights. He didn't just make money from Ridiculousness. He built an income engine that never stopped running. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't even cool. But it worked, and he kept refining it. He filmed multiple seasons at once, stacking content months ahead of schedule. He streamlined production so they could shoot over 300 episodes a year. He optimized the set, the cast, the budget, everything designed to compound. And while other creators were chasing trends on YouTube, Rob was buying up TV real estate. Day and night, every single week. He also understood how to make Ridiculousness bigger than the show itself. Through Super Jacket, he spun off other series like Snack Off, The Dude Perfect Show, and Amazingness. None hit like Ridiculousness, but they weren't supposed to. They were test runs, revenue experiments he could pilot and cancel without risking the mothership. And when it was time to level up, he did what Rob always does. He turned the model into a merger. In 2020, Super Jacket joined forces with Nitro Circus and Street League to form a new parent company, Thrill One Sports and Entertainment. That deal gave Rob equity in a multi-platform action sports empire and positioned him for a bigger exit down the road. People laughed about how often Ridiculousness aired. They made memes, they counted the blocks on the TV guide. But Rob, he kept cashing checks because Ridiculousness wasn't a show. It was syndication with sneakers. And Rob wasn't talent, he was the landlord. While Ridiculousness was taking over cable, Rob was already applying the same blueprint to something closer to home: professional skateboarding. In 2010, he launched Street League Skateboarding, a pro contest series built to showcase skateboarding at its absolute highest level. But it wasn't just another comp. Rob treated it like a product. Structured format, clear scoring, big prize money, high production value. He'd seen firsthand how contest skating was treated like an afterthought. Chaotic rules, tiny purses, poor visibility, so he rebuilt it from scratch.
in the malls that they were buying, then I was going to design skate plazas and then have a pro tour go through all those malls.
Wow.
And then I invested in that, and that was like what really pushed the concept of Street League forward.
SLS wasn't just for core skaters. It was made for cameras, for broadcasters, and for sponsors who wanted consistency. Rob brought in ESPN, Nike, and later Monster and GoPro, creating a system where skaters could earn real money, real exposure, and year-round recognition. For the first time, contest pros weren't just chasing trophies, they were chasing a career, and that changed everything. SLS introduced live scoring, slow-motion replays, and a bracket-style format that gave skateboarding the kind of legitimacy it had never seen. For sponsors, it made skateboarding easier to sell. For fans, it made watching fun. For skaters, it made winning mean more. Nyjah Huston became the league's breakout star, but the platform elevated dozens of careers and gave structure to a sport that had always resisted it. Core fans had mixed feelings, but brands, they were all in. He didn't just launch it. He structured the league, built the partnerships, and controlled the broadcast. He built the event, packaged the coverage, licensed the content. When SLS peaked, it was airing on ESPN and international networks in over 100 countries. It partnered with World Skate. It even became an Olympic qualifier. In 2020, Rob merged Street League into Thrill One alongside Super Jacket and Nitro Circus, giving him equity in an action sports powerhouse. Then, like any smart founder, he stepped back. He didn't micromanage, he exited clean, and used the momentum to go even bigger. To Rob, Street League wasn't the finish line. It was a proof of concept. He'd built a fully functioning sports league from scratch and scaled it into a global platform. Now it was time to apply that same system to everything else. By the late 2000s and 10s, Rob had conquered skating, owned the TV schedule, and stacked enough checks to walk away. But instead of disappearing, he reemerged with a notebook, a whiteboard, and a new mission: to build brands that could outlive him. The world knew Rob Dyrdek the entertainer, but behind closed doors, Rob Dyrdek the architect was already designing something much bigger. He called it the Dyrdek Machine.
You know that there is a better future for yourself, but you've got to decide what that better future looks like.
A brand incubator, venture studio, and personal philosophy all rolled into one. Not a VC fund, not a Shark Tank hustle, a structured operating system built off data, emotion, habit, and discipline. Rob didn't just want to invest in companies, he wanted to engineer them from the ground up. Most celebrity investors chase headlines. Rob chased structure. Every deal went through what he called the machine method, a strict set of filters he developed through trial and failure. It wasn't sexy, it was math, metrics, pattern recognition. Before he backed anything, he asked, does the founder align with my values? Can this brand create joy and real utility? Is there long-term scalability and culture fit? And most importantly, can we build the story together? Because Rob wasn't writing checks, he was writing frameworks.
You want to create a strategy, have a complete understanding, and implement a strategy that allows you to do whatever you want with your time and not be forced to be earning money to live. That is the entire concept of financial freedom.
Brands like MindRight, LusoCloud, Outstanding Foods, Momentous, and Doe Lashes weren't just cool consumer products. They were extensions of Rob's operating philosophy: mental wellness, daily ritual, comfort, performance, all shaped around lifestyle principles he actually lived by. And the system worked. By 2022, the Dyrdek Machine had launched or partnered in 18 companies, with multiple 7- and 8-figure exits. His portfolio wasn't bloated, it was curated. And in typical Rob fashion, he designed it to scale without chaos. He started tracking every part of his life like a startup. Literally. He built a life operating system to monitor his goals, moods, time blocks, and energy levels. His calendar was color-coded like a Wall Street dashboard. He even designed a sacred space, a part meditation zone, part founder altar, where he could review performance, set intentions, and recalibrate.
If I was getting up at 6 and I started getting up at 5, that gave me 1 extra hour of work time a day. And so it's like, okay, well that's cool. You got up a little bit early. You got 7 extra hours this week. But
To the outside world, it sounded wild. To Rob, it was version control for his mindset. Because he'd lived the chaos already. The filming, the fame, the burnout. Now he wanted peace and precision. He realized that sustainable greatness wasn't about grinding harder. It was about aligning every minute of your life with what you believe in. And that belief system translated directly into how he built companies. He wasn't chasing unicorns, he was chasing balance. Every business had to fit the system. Every founder had to pass the gut test. Every product had to deliver daily value, not just hype. This wasn't a side hustle. This was his life's work. The irony? Most people still saw him as the ridiculousness guy. But in boardrooms across LA and New York, Rob was quietly building one of the most respected consumer incubators in the country. No ego, no flex, just precision and pattern. And he brought others in too. Rob Dyrdek was never just a skater, never just a TV star, and definitely not just another celebrity trying to flip fame into fortune. He was always building something deeper, something durable. And now, that system has evolved into its final form. Today, Rob lives a life most entrepreneurs dream about. Not because of a lucky break, but because he engineered every minute of it with precision. He doesn't just set goals, he builds systems that generate results. His real obsession? Time freedom. Not just financial success.
I never saved any money. All the way up to 40. Made millions, spent millions. Highly successful millionaire who had made millions and spent millions.
He believes happiness is found in structure, not spontaneity. That the secret to fulfillment is tracking what actually matters, not just chasing outcomes. And he didn't keep it to himself. In 2023, he began releasing tools and templates from the system publicly. First through YouTube breakdowns, then through Mindset, a guided journaling and goal tracking app built around his personal rituals. It wasn't a side hustle, it was a blueprint, because Rob knows what burnout feels like, what wasted years feel like, and he's obsessed with helping others compress time, to become the best version of themselves faster, with fewer scars. He shares his entire mental framework like an open source protocol, the rhythms he uses to plan months ahead, the founder rituals that reset his focus, the identity tools that helped him evolve past ego. And he does it with zero hype, just straight systems. He's not selling a dream, he's offering process over promise. That clarity has become his true legacy. Forget the kickflips, the show openings, the celebrity cameos. The most powerful thing Rob Dyrdek ever built wasn't a brand. It was a mental operating system, a new relationship with time, energy, and self-direction. Ask any founder he's worked with, any brand he's co-created. They'll tell you the same thing. He's not trying to be the face. He's trying to build the flywheel. That's the thing most people still miss. They see ridiculousness memes and assume Rob got lucky. They hear former pro skater and assume his peak was in the past. But behind the curtain, he's running one of the most dialed-in personal and professional loops in the game, one that turns ideas into assets, time into leverage, and presence into peace. And he's not done. He's scaling the Dyrdek Machine, refining his app, mentoring a new class of founders. He's in meetings most days, filming content some days, but always carving out time to reflect, recalibrate, and evolve. Not because he has to, because that's the operating rhythm now. Rob Dyrdek figured out how to live on his own terms, with clarity, peace, and zero regrets. He didn't just exit the matrix, he built a new one. So yeah, you could say he was lucky, or you could admit what's actually true. Rob Dyrdek might be the most quietly influential builder of this generation, not because he was the loudest, but because he designed a life that runs itself. If you thought this story was wild, wait until you see how another action sports genius turned chaos into a legacy just as massive. And if you've got your own take on Rob, your favorite show moment, wildest brand move, or underrated genius play we missed, drop it in the comments and join the thread. Thanks for watching. Hit that like if this shifted how you see Rob. And as always, stay wicked.